You wake up to your phone vibrating relentlessly. This is not a normal notification, not just another message. It's a global alert. Within seconds, the screens around you begin to flicker, and the world you know seems to pause for a brief, almost imperceptible moment. A nuclear explosion has been confirmed. It doesn't matter where you are. New York, São Paulo, Tokyo. The impact is not local, it's psychological, immediate, and brutal. Before you can even process what just happened, the financial markets have already reacted, and not with logic, with fear. A raw, primitive fear that doesn't calculate risk. It just runs. In the first few minutes, you don't see charts. You see chaos. High-frequency trading algorithms begin dumping assets at speeds no human could ever match. Massive sell orders flood the market without hesitation. Liquidity vanishes as if it never existed. What once felt stable, major companies, banks, entire funds, starts melting on your screen. And then you realize something deeply uncomfortable. The market was never designed for something like this. It was built to handle recessions, economic cycles, even wars, but not the existential fear of a potential end. You try to access your brokerage account. The app lags more than usual. Millions of people around the world are doing the exact same thing. Trying to sell, to exit, to protect whatever can still be protected. But there's a silent problem unfolding beneath the surface. When everyone wants out at the same time, there's no one left to buy. And in that moment, price stops being rational. It becomes a reflection of collective panic. Drops are no longer 2% or 5%. They are violent. 10%, 20%, 30% within hours. And still, it doesn't feel like the bottom. Meanwhile, the biggest players have already started moving before you even realized what was happening. Institutional funds, central banks, and governments shift into emergency mode. Exchanges may halt trading. Circuit breakers get triggered. Markets pause. But this doesn't con anything. It only delays the fear. Because when the system stops, the question isn't when will it reopen, it's what will happen when it does. And that unanswered question becomes more dangerous than any red chart. Then you start noticing another movement. Quieter, but just as powerful. Money doesn't disappear. It moves. So-called safe haven assets begin absorbing massive flows. Gold surges. The US dollar strengthens against emerging market currencies. Government bonds from stable countries become a refuge. But even these moves carry an invisible tension, because for the first time, the risk isn't just economic, it's systemic, it's global, and that changes the rules of the game entirely. Now stop for a second and think clearly. The financial market is, above all, a system built on trust. Trust that companies will operate, that governments will function, that contracts will be honored. But what happens when an event threatens that entire structure? When fear is no longer about losing money, but about survival itself? In that scenario, valuation doesn't matter. Indicators don't matter. What matters is liquidity, access, protection, and that creates distortions that very few investors are prepared to face. And this is exactly where most people make their biggest mistake. They react. They sell at the worst possible moment. They make decisions driven by emotion, not strategy, because no one prepares you for this. No one teaches you how markets behave when risk stops being financial and becomes existential. But there is a pattern. There is a logic behind the chaos, and understanding it could be the difference between losing everything or navigating the most critical moment in market history with control. Because what happens after the initial shock is even more revealing. The first shock wave is always the most violent. But it's not the most dangerous. As the initial panic begins to settle, something even more complex starts to unfold. Governments step in. Emergency meetings happen behind closed doors. Central banks prepare interventions designed to stabilize the system. Liquidity injections are announced. Interest rate cuts are considered. And on the surface, it may look like control is being restored. But underneath, the market is no longer reacting to numbers, it's reacting to uncertainty. And uncertainty is far more unpredictable than fear. When trading resumes, you expect some kind of recovery, a bounce, a correction. That's what normally happens after extreme sell-offs. But this time feels different. Volatility is no longer just high, it's unstable. Prices move erratically, with no clear direction. One moment, markets surge on hope of stabilization. The next, they collapse again under new rumors, new threats, new possibilities. And you begin to understand something critical. The market is no longer pricing assets, it's pricing scenarios. And the worst-case scenario, still on the table. At this stage, global correlations begin to break. Assets that usually move independently start moving together. Stocks fall alongside cryptocurrencies. Real estate expectations shift. Even commodities become unpredictable. The diversification strategies that once felt safe start to lose their effectiveness, because diversification works when risks are different. But in a systemic event, everything becomes connected. Everything becomes exposed. And suddenly, the idea of being protected feels like an illusion. You start hearing comparisons. Analysts mention past crises, the 2008 financial crash, the dot-com bubble, even geopolitical conflicts that shook markets. But deep down, you sense that this is not the same. Those events, as severe as they were, still operated within a known framework. This doesn't. The uncertainty is broader. The potential consequences are harder to model. And that makes every decision heavier, slower, and filled with doubt. Meanwhile, a new layer of behavior emerges: opportunistic capital. While most people are paralyzed by fear, a small group of investors begins to move differently. They are not ignoring the risk. They are studying it, looking for mispriced assets, watching for overreactions, waiting for moments where panic creates opportunity. But even for them, the line is thin, because in a scenario like this, the difference between a temporary drought and a permanent loss becomes dangerously unclear. At the same time, real-world effects begin feeding back into the market. Supply chains are disrupted. Energy prices react. Consumer confidence drops sharply. Businesses delay investments. Hiring slows. And what started as a shock in the financial system begins to spread into the real economy. This feedback loop reinforces the market's instability, because now, it's no longer just fear driving prices. It's actual economic impact beginning to take shape. And this is the moment where clarity becomes your most valuable asset. Not certainty, because there is none, but clarity, the ability to step back, observe patterns, and avoid being pulled into the emotional current of the crowd. Because while the majority is reacting to headlines, the market is quietly forming its next structure. And whether you realize it or not, you are already positioned within it. The only question is, are you positioned by design or by panic? Asterisk. As time passes, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. The intensity of the panic starts to fade. Not because the risk is gone, but because the human mind cannot sustain extreme fear indefinitely. Markets begin to stabilize, not in a straight line, but in fragments. Short rallies appear. Selling pressure weakens in certain sectors, and slowly, almost invisibly, a new narrative starts forming. Not one of certainty, but of adaptation. Because the market, above all, is a living system, and it learns. You begin to notice that not all assets are behaving the same way anymore. Some sectors remain deeply damaged, struggling to recover under the weight of uncertainty. Others, surprisingly, start to show resilience. Defense, energy, cybersecurity, and infrastructure-related companies begin attracting attention. Capital starts rotating, not randomly, but strategically. Investors are no longer just asking what is safe. They are asking what survives, and more importantly, what benefits from this new reality. This is where the structure of the market begins to rebuild itself. Prices stop being driven purely by panic and start reflecting expectations again. But these expectations are different now. Risk is being repriced. Entire industries are reevaluated. Business models that once seemed uncheckable are questioned, and new leaders begin to emerge. Quietly at first, almost unnoticed, but for those paying attention, the signals are there. At the same time, policy responses start to reshape the financial landscape. Governments introduce new regulations, central banks adjust their strategies. Emergency measures taken during the crisis may become permanent tools, and these changes create second-order effects, shifts that don't happen immediately, that unfold over months and years. The market you knew before is not the market you are stepping into now. And this is where your perspective becomes everything, because most people are still looking backward. They are trying to understand the future using the logic of the past. But the investors who truly adapt do the opposite. They accept that the rules have changed. They focus on positioning, not prediction. They understand that uncertainty is not something to eliminate, but something to navigate. If you step back even further, you start to see a pattern that repeats across history. Every major shock, no matter how extreme, creates destruction and opportunity. The difference is never in the event itself, it's in how people respond to it. Some are consumed by the moment, others use it to reposition, to rethink, to rebuild. And over time, that difference compounds, quietly, powerfully. So the real question was never just what happens to the market if a nuclear explosion occurs. The real question is, how do you respond when the system you trust is pushed to its limits? Because in the end, markets recover. They always do, in one form or another, but not everyone recovers with them. And the decisions made in moments of extreme uncertainty are the ones that define everything that comes after.